more minutes late than usual, but things beyond my control. I heard Claudina did a phenomenal job last week while I was up here more often. No. You have to go. Okay, I'll do it. So I'm going to try to get her up here a little bit more. You guys talked about The Princess and the Warrior, which was perfect for my princess to get up and talk to you about that. Today, I get to talk about sex. So, sex and the mind game. Okay? So we're going to pray, and we're going to get started, and we'll get right into it. Don't get intimidated. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going to talk about sex, and grow up, okay? You know, actually, more churches, if you gave me the opportunity to put my 2 cents in, more churches should be talking about this kind of stuff, because do you want to get the information from the world, or you want to get it from the church? Right? Some of you are like, I'm good with the world. No, we got to go with, you know, what the church has to say. And the church has a lot of good information, and there's nothing wrong with sex. God created it, right? And all the men said, okay. So I know, and the women are like, well, we say amen too, but yes, you say it in a much lower voice. So let's pray, and then we'll get started.
I want to make sure that there's no children in here. Babies?
Yes.
Babies, yes.
Babies that can't comprehend English yet? Okay.
Okay.
Any other small children are today? Okay? No small children, and then those of you that are really not mature, you may want to step out. Right? Josh, sit down. I know, all of you down, right? Okay, so no children, and I guess lastly, everyone has a worksheet, correct? Yeah. There are no pictures. We will not be doing demonstrations, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Okay? I know. Boo. All right, let's pray. Yeah, wrong class. That's in the advanced class at 10:45.
Heavenly Father, we commit this morning to you, Lord God. We commit this hour and 15 minutes to you as well, Lord God. I ask that you would minister to us, that you would teach us, oh God, that you would teach husbands and wives, Lord God, how to see eye to eye, how to come together, Lord God, how to make this marriage work the way that...
So we'll get there. But I agree with them. It's really important. I know a lot of us didn't wait until we were married. And so the effects of that, you know, obviously we're dealing with different effects from that, but how important is that to instill into your kids now that we're grown up and we see and we know better and all those things? Trying to get them to cling on to that is really, really important. So I hope you can see that. I hope that you'll put some effort into trying to get your kids to understand that as well. But looking at it, ask yourself, or let's talk about, what are some of the variables that can have an influence on the sexual relationship in a marriage? What are the things that have an influence? Does your past have an influence on your sexual relationship? Yeah. Yes? What else? What are some of the other variables? Stress? Pornography? Kids? Medical issues? Work?
Whether your parents talk to you about it or not as you grew up.
Right.
They made you think it was a dirty thing or a good thing or not talk about it at all.
Right? The way that our, you know, again, our parents, thank you, Lord, for our parents, for the good and for the bad. You know, sometimes your parents twisted you all up when it came to sex. You know, don't do it. It's going to fall off if you do it. You know, just like he was talking about, you know, parents getting their kids into sex is bad. You know, sex isn't bad. God created it. God designed us so that we fit together perfectly. You know, man to woman. But that's a conversation for a whole other day. Anyway, so what other variables can have an effect on it?
Hurt,
Hurt?
anger,
Hurt and anger?
fatigue,
Faiths.
Huh?
Different faiths.
Faiths? Is there any religion out there that says you shouldn't have sex? Only if you're a priest and you make that vow, or a nun and you make that vow, and those are miserable people. That can't even. Yeah.
Some people are naturally, like the Apostle Paul, they're naturally not concerned about that, you know, and then they get married and they make somebody very miserable, you know, and I think that's who the Apostle Paul is
Why do you
referring
look at
to.
me when you say that?
That's why because, you know, it's out there, you know, so it's kind of like he said, those people need to make an extra effort, you know, and it's not as easy as it with somebody else. But the Apostle Paul said that there was some out there just like him.
That's true. Anything else? Anything else have an effect on it?
Having unrealistic expectations.
Okay. Unrealistic expectations. What about, you know, we didn't talk about the social influences. You know, the TV, the radio, the movies, you know, the internet, all those things that tell you how it should be or sell you on how it should be. And then that leads to unrealistic expectations. And then, you know, listen, I love it when they come out with polls. You know, how many times a week is normal? How many times a week do you do it? Who's going to really tell the truth if they're not? Everyone says, oh, every day, man. My husband can't, sometimes 2, 3, I got to beat him off with a stick. And I remember when I was growing up, I found that the guys that used to like to brag and used to like to talk about it are the ones who weren't getting anything. Because they don't want to come across as being not fitting the mark, you know?
So that's why married couples should not talk about this
Right.
with other people.
No, and because I don't believe that I don't believe that for the reality, unless things go the opposite end of the scale and then they come around, they complain, well, you know.
Yeah.
So everybody's situation is different. Don't base on what your situation is to somebody else's situation because it's different. And that goes with every aspect of your relationship. Just because someone does something a certain way doesn't mean that that's the status quo and that's the way that you should be doing it. Your most important perspective should be the perspective of your spouse. What's important to them? Being able to do what fits. I kind of stuttered with an F, didn't I? You got to do what fits. And you just got to make it work, you know? And so don't worry about what the other person does. Worry about because ultimately you don't live with the other person. You live with your spouse. And so you got to do what makes them right. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. So is there consequences of having a lust-filled imprinting, especially on men?
Yeah.
I think, you know, it says especially on men because that's the way it was written in the book, but I think the imprinting could be just as powerful, just as strong on a woman. You know, they have this whole thing about pornography directed at men, but ladies, don't kid yourself, there's just as much a problem with women looking at pornography as well. There's just as much a problem with, especially now with the women's movement, and women having this attitude of, I don't need a man because I can get a job, I can make a living, I can go get me a man, I can go do this, I don't need anything. I can go take care of everything myself. And so your desires are the same way. Well, if I can get a man, I can look at this and ooh, you know, and if that weren't the case, then all those shows of Thunder from Down Under and all those other shows wouldn't be as popular as they are. They wouldn't. I'm sorry?
You don't want to know.
He knows, he's just busting my chops. Huh? I mean, there's just as much out there for the women as there is for the men, and it's a problem because that imprinting happens. And then you think about, you know, I'm not going to ask, but if you really ask yourself, for those of you that lost your virginity prior to being married, if you could go back and do it all over again, knowing now what you know, and being with the person that you are, how much more awesome would it have been starting off fresh? not knowing nothing. Yeah, you may fumble around and have a hard time getting started and maybe not, but you learn together. And more importantly, you learn the other person as opposed to, well, I know this works because I read this and tried this and do that. And you know what? That doesn't mean nothing because your person that you're with is an individual that responds differently than everybody else. You ever notice that different people are ticklish in different areas? Some people aren't ticklish at all. I'll leave it at that. It works, you know, women or men respond differently in different areas, in different things, and it's not all the same. Some things may be kind of across the field. Don't you agree?
Yeah, that's why it's so dangerous to compare. I think comparing, I think it's almost like not literally, you know, some Christians would think call it a spirit or whatever, but I think that when you fall into the trap of comparing, whether it's how much your spouse makes versus somebody else's spouse, what that spouse does around the house or the yard versus your spouse, how that spouse behaves in public. You have to remember, there's public personas. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Then you start to covet that. You start to, well, that's not, we need, or your girlfriend will brag about her amazing sex life or whatever the case may be. And their needs, you cannot look at another couple and mirror that. Your marriage is unique to you. You have to find out what works for you and what plan and what vision God has for your marriage. And when you can finally get that, then you will be set free. And that the same goes for the husband. You know, talk to different females. Somebody once told me that the husband told her that he resented her for not having a career. I'm like, whoa, is he still breathing? No. Well, you know, so because maybe some men are out in the field and they see women that work and they're in their public persona, so maybe they think, wow, she handles her home, her kids, and she brings home the bacon, and she does it all. You know, we need to not do that. We need to concentrate with what we have and the spouse that God gave us in every aspect.
Amen, sister. Amen. So, you all understand, based on the video, why it's so important that our first sexual experiences cause the imprinting on the woman? What he said was powerful. I hope you caught that. Because when a woman has sex prior to her being married, she relates what happens afterwards to what sex has to do. That's powerful, man. Because, you know, it's very rare that you are relational afterwards when you're not married, when there's no ties there. You know, think about all the things that you've seen on TV on how those hooking up wind up. You know, sometimes you don't even wind up spending the whole night together. It's just take care of business and be on your way. Or you know, if you do wake up in the morning, you know, you get one more shot at it and then you're out the door. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get breakfast. Maybe. But you know what I'm saying? And that's the imprint that gets left. But again, going back to husband and wife together, first time, what happens afterwards? It's like, you know, it's amazing what happens between two people when you come together and experience that for the first time together, and all the things that happen afterwards. Are you with me? I know some of you are a little uncomfortable.
Well, it's uncomfortable because some of us blew it, and that's why we have to go to the next
Why are
meeting.
you looking at me?
No, because I feel it in my spirit. And we have a lot of young people in here. And this is why we tell you, this is so important. You know, when your parents or the adults in your life give you some wisdom and they tell you, it's not because they want to take the fun out of it. We don't want you to have to struggle the way that we did. We don't want you to have to wake up every day and crucify the flesh, crucify the thoughts in your mind and renew the thoughts that are going through your head. You don't have to do that if you listen to wise counsel, young people.
And I think the majority of people in here probably, I'm going to say majority because I don't know all of you, okay, personally, but I think the majority of you have had sex. Okay? And there's probably very few of you in here that have not. So you may think to yourself, why is he talking to us about that? Because at some point you are going to influence somebody else's life. Whether that be your children. Sonia, I'm sorry, you have 2 kids that are how old? And they're what? Male or female? Oh, you better be talking to those boys. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, right? Okay. No, I know you do. That's the reason that we're talking to you about this, because if it doesn't apply to you, it's going to apply to your kids. And do you want your kids to go out and forget about teenage or young adult pregnancy or getting caught up in the midst of not being married or whatever the case may be? Man, we want our kids to be better. We want our kids to learn from our mistakes, right? And who here hasn't made some mistakes? So yes, it's a little bit uncomfortable, and believe me, I'm not the most casual person to be up here and talking about it either, but this is stuff we've got to talk about. And what better place to talk about it than here? Yep. Are you with me?
Yes.
Y'all are way too quiet for me. Is this too much for you? No. No? Okay. John's like, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay, so does it make sense then that people who wait to get married to have sex have a fraction of the divorce rate than those who don't? Do you know that that's a proven statistic? People that wait until they're married to have sex have a fraction of the divorce rate that normal people do. I shouldn't even say normal. Ones that don't wait. Why is that? Why is that?
Well, I think people that wait till they're married have a moral standard.
An immoral standard?
Moral.
I heard. So they do have a moral standard, but even more than that, you don't know any better. You have no imprinting on your head. You have no thoughts running through your head. Excuse me. This is the way that this should take place. This is the way that this should take place. This is how you do this. You're not comparing. And I hate to use that word comparing, but it's not, you can call it, what is the word that they said? Imprinting, right? You can call it imprinting. But it's really, I'm trying to get you to grasp onto the fact that that's what it is. You don't want that to happen. Guys, do you want to be trying to outperform the guy or guys or whatever before you? Women, do you want to try to live up to an expectation of somebody before you? Or somebody's before you? That's why there's so much of an emphasis on this. And consequences of premarital, on the women, we know that it has an effect on that. And is it problematic in a marriage? Absolutely. You know, that's when things start getting flown around. Well, how come you don't do this? Or how come you don't do that? Or man, where do you even get the right to ask me that? That's not me. But see, you're caught in the past. And folks, we got to live in the future. We got to live in the present and think about the future. Don't be worried about so much about what's back here. Because man, if you spend your whole time looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to wind up crashing in what's in front of you. Y'all are still too quiet for me. And this is why it's so vitally important that the kids get the correct information about sex rather than the lies that our culture feeds them. I know for those of you that have been on Facebook, you've been seeing that some schools are going to start teaching about anal sex. They're going to start teaching about oral sex. Yes. They're going to start teaching that. You want your kids to learn from the teacher in school? No. Man, I got a hard enough time when the teachers were teaching politics and things like that, because it's based on what they want to put forth to their students. Man, if you are not the one talking to your kids, somebody else is going to talk to them. Just like it was with you, right? Some of you, your parents never talked to you about sex, so where did you learn it from? From the kid who's having sex way too early. Hey man, this is how you do this. That's so cool. You're 13 years old, knock it off. You have to be a stronger influence on your kids. And you have to be the one that they get the information from, because you are the one who's more concerned, is not concerned concerned about them to the degree that you are. So don't leave, and I'm not knocking teachers, Flora, just so you know, okay? But they don't care. I mean, there's a lot of good Christians. Yeah, Flora does. So everyone requests Flora as a teacher for their kids for that grade. But listen, there are some good Christian teachers out there, but the majority of them are not. And they're going to put their views on your kids. So be careful. I know we're going to start a whole uprising of homeschoolers. That's it. You're never going to school again. Never. Okay? It is. It's scary times out there, and you have to take matters into your own hands. Okay? You really do. So there's 1 Corinthians 7, 3 through 5, or 6 in the message. I got in the message about, it says the marriage bed has to be a place of mutuality. The husband seeking to satisfy his wife, the wife seeking to satisfy her husband. Marriage isn't a place to stand up for your rights. Marriage is a decision to serve the other, whether in bed or out. Okay, we'll leave that alone. Abstaining from sex is permissible for a period of time if you both agree to it, and if it's for the purpose of prayer and fasting, but only for such times, then come back together again. Satan has an ingenious way of tempting us when we least expect it. You know, it's kind of like sex should be everything about the other person as well. We tell you if you want a good relationship, you should put the other person first. Man, kind of a good attitude to go into the bedroom with. Put the other person first. Because if you take care of me, okay, let me rephrase that. If you have it does. No, but I mean, but your mental attitude is going to be, hey, if I get satisfied, why wouldn't I want to be satisfied? Why wouldn't I want to try to satisfy you as well? Don't be that person, and there's a lot of them out there that selfish. Yep. It's all about you. And then you're ready to go to sleep, or you fall asleep, or you fall asleep during, or whatever the case may be. Don't be that person. Be the person that's concerned, you know, about the other person, because it's really nice. I don't know. I mean, I'll say this, and I don't want to sound rude or anything like that, but how awesome is it? How great do you feel when you're able to bring the other person to climax? Women, you feel great because you know, stop it. Women, women, you know, you feel great when you're able to do that for your man. And men just feel like champions of the world, want to put up their hands like this, you know. And some men are like, I got you, yeah. But Claudina's going to leave after this. So. But really, it's an awesome feeling to be able to provide that for your spouse. That's right. Right? Does anyone disagree with me?
No. You're right. Well, I don't disagree, but the reason I remember we did another series about sex.
Fanning the flames of romance.
Yeah, and I remember somebody sharing with me how they had a friend who'd been married for like 20 years, and her husband had never taken the time to satisfy her. What a devastating, and how selfish, and how basically she was just there to service him.
Let's just clarify the fact that she is not talking about me. Okay? Can we clarify that, please?
20 years.
Can you clarify that?
No, but that's where, in a lot of other
She still hasn't clarified it.
yes, I can clarify.
Okay.
But there are some cultures, and this is why we need to talk about this, because we want your marriage to thrive. We don't want to give the devil a foothold. We don't want to leave your marriage open with the crack in any area, not just, you know, every area of your marriage. You need to guard it. You need to protect it. You need to use wisdom. And it takes work and effort in all the departments, including that one. So there's so many cultures that don't talk about it. And the woman is basically just there to serve as the husband. And that is not biblical.
Amen.
No,
Or else God would have given the woman working parts.
we just read that. We just read that where it is. It's gotta, you gotta work for it. You gotta put in a little bit of effort. And, you know, it's, listen, it is a tough subject. And the bottom line is, we get really lazy. We get really lazy when we get married. Because we got so much going on between the kids and work and this and that. It's like, I'm so tired. And man, but I don't know who came up with the terminology quickie, okay? But the bottom line is that, listen, y'all know this is the twisted side, right? The bottom line is this, listen, you know, if you two are married, then it should always be about making love, right?
Amen.
I mean, that terminology is all about making love. But the reality of it is let's face it, you don't always have the time to be eco suave and put in 2 hours and do all that kind of thing. So you got to be able to understand that it's not going to look the same every time. Right. But it's also doesn't have to look the same every time. Don't get into a rut. What does he mean by that? I'm gonna leave that alone. You know, I need to have the advanced classes. I know. Okay. Hebrews 13:4. Yes.
Thank you.
Real quick.
I just want to say that in marriage, making love to one another is the intimacy of having the sexual union. But when one of the spouses just has sex, then it becomes cold and selfish. You want to always make love to your spouse.
Didn't I just say that?
Not that way.
Not that. Okay. All right. So Hebrews 13:4 says marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept what? Pure. Kept pure. What does that mean? What does that mean?
No kinky stuff.
No what?
Kinky stuff, worldly.
See, now we can have a whole definition of what you consider to be kinky, but we don't have time for that today, nor do I want to embarrass anybody else any more than we already have to, okay? Keep it.
Immorality out, I guess.
That's great. See, Claudina hit it right on the head. Immorality. Okay, we don't want that to be in there. God will judge the adulterer and the sexually immoral. So we have to be careful about that, okay? Now there's another video real quick, about a minute's worth, and we're short on time, but we're going to watch that video anyway, so let's watch that now. They covered the most important part, which was women just have to show up. That's all.
How's the quickie?
Right?
Exactly.
That's not true, because it doesn't, just because a woman shows up doesn't mean it has to be a quickie. It's just that we need you there. I mean, that's why I didn't want you guys sitting together, okay? All right, so okay, we know why it's important for the man to focus on the woman during the relationship, okay? The physical aspect of it. It's true. Women are a little more complicated than men. Men, yeah, I'm not going there. I'm just, you know, ladies, you got us figured out, right? Hello, ladies? Some of you ladies are like, I'm not looking at him. I am not looking at him. You got us figured out, right?
Yes.
You know how to take care of your man.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Guys.
That side is very cool.
Oh yeah, that's why I said this is twisted seating only. And then we get more conservative as we come this way. You should be proud. You should be very proud. So, but here's the thing: is you have to be able to. We know that the women are more complicated because they are designed differently. And we know that what works for one does not necessarily work for another, right? So that's why, just like we talked about earlier, we have to get to know that person, and what works for one doesn't work for the other. So don't base it on, don't allow yourself to be influenced by what you see, what you hear, what you read, because that's a bunch of malarkey. Every individual relationship is different. Every individual person is different. And you have to make sure that you are attentive to the needs of the other person. Are you with me?
Yes.
All right.
I think that most women, not all, some women may be freaky that way, but for most women, the act of making love is one little part of a big picture. So if you are a mean husband, you don't have a job, you don't provide, you don't pick up help around the house, that's probably not at the top of her list to make love to you. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm older now, I'm grandma now, I can talk like this, I lived a long life. So I think that's why women are more complicated. Because for us, the act of love making
Goes way beyond the physical
it
aspect
happens
of it.
all year long, every day, from the moment that you wake up to the moment, if you feel loved, if you feel secure, if you feel like your husband is living for you, there's nothing that woman won't do for you. And I say that. But if you're a jerk, if you're mean, if you're lazy, if you're selfish, if you're prideful, and you just put on that public persona and you go out and it's not going to be good in the bedroom. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Preach it, sister. Preach it, sister. All right. So, listen, here's the problem, though, is a lot of times in our relationship, when it comes to the sexual aspect of our relationship, we have a hard time communicating. We know that communication in our relationship is a difficult thing to begin with. Some of us have a really hard time going beyond surface communication. And we know that through being here, that there are different levels of communication. It has to go way beyond or way below surface communication, to where you can talk openly about your dreams and your hurts and your aspirations, knowing that the other person will never use that against you. Right?
Yeah.
So, when you have those conversations about the sexual aspect of your relationship, that has to be an open line of communication as well. Because if you are able to communicate about your relationship in general, listen, these are the things that really rub me the wrong way. I wish you could do it. And of course, you don't want to do anything to rub your spouse the wrong way purposely. So the same thing would hold true is, this is what really works for me and this is what really doesn't. And you should be able to be okay with that too. Are you with me? Okay. So Proverbs 5:18 through 19 says, "May your fountain be blessed." I know some of you are going, I don't get it. Talk to one on this side. Okay? May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. Okay? I know. Oh. And then if you look at the next one, Song of Solomon 7:10 through 13, it says, "I belong to my lover, and his desire is for me. Come, my lover, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early into the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes send out their fragrance, and at our doors every delicacy, both new and old, that I have stored up for you, my lover." There's what? There's your romance novel. And if you've never read the Song of Solomon in the Bible, I suggest you do it, because it is a love story. And read it in a couple of different versions. Not virgins, versions. Okay? Read it in a couple of different versions so that maybe you get it in a different way. Because I know some of you, I read that Proverbs, "May your fountain be blessed," and you don't get it. Okay? If you read it in the Message Bible, maybe it might make a little bit of sense. But how has pornography changed how people, especially men, view the role of romance in a sexual relationship? We know it's twisted us, right? I mean, we've talked about this over and over again, how we can be influenced and how the imprinting that's left on our minds can be changed so much by the visual aspect of what we see, or the visual aspect of, or the audible aspect of what we hear. Right? And so, you know, it's funny, Claudine and I, we were watching TV yesterday, and there was, I don't even remember what channel it was on, but what's Stossel's first name? Eric?
The guy on Fox.
The reporter. He had this Freedom Conference yesterday, and he was bringing out all these different CEOs of companies and the successes and the limitations that the government's put on them and how that stifled American growth and all these things. But the guy from the CEO of Carl's Jr. and Hardee's, which is a combination company, they interviewed him, and they only gave each one of these people like 5 minutes. Carl's Jr. was losing money when this guy came on. And the first thing that they did was they changed the perspective. He said the restaurants were ugly, they were smelly, and we had people with no teeth serving food. Okay? That's what he said. That's what he said. Because they had a bunch of viejitos, you know, where so here's the thing. But what he said was this: we changed the advertising campaign and we started doing those commercials that appealed to young men. Okay? Because that's what they wanted to do. Guess what? They attracted young men. Guys that never wanted to eat at Carl's Jr. was like, I don't know why, but I want a Western bacon cheeseburger. You know? It was working. Okay? So imagine, and that's not even pornographic, although it does, it can be lustful. Okay? I'm sorry? I'm not pointing, I'm just moving my arm. Don't take it personal. So the thing is that it does have an influence, even in the minor aspects of it. You have to be careful.
I think that our society has programmed our men, and it starts from the time that they're little. We are so desensitized now to what we see on TV, commercials, when we go to the beach. Even just going out to have some fun at dinner or whatever the case may be, that they market on this. So this is how Carl's Jr. is generating the money that they're generating. They are playing with the minds of men, and it's worked for them. So we need to be careful. We need to turn it back, unsensitize or reverse it, whatever the word is. So we need to be aware of that. And that's how pornography has changed. You know, the question here is, how has pornography changed how people, especially men, view the role of romance in a sexual relationship? They don't. It's just, it's turned men in, they just think that women are objects. And this is what this does to men and women. You know, it takes away from the meaning that God created it to have, which was to become one. To become one not only in the flesh, but in spirit, and procreate, and be that one person. It's twisted it, and that's exactly how the enemy wants to have it.
That's true. That is true. So, it does, yes.
God's created truth, and Satan's created a lie.
Yeah.
That's true.
So when we proceed with those and indulge in those, that's what we're doing. Truth or a lie.
That's true. So, you know, you have to be, it's like with everything else, you have to be selective about what you allow in.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's through your ears or through your eyes or through your heart. Okay? Be very selective. And that's why it's important that we ask God to give us the strength. You know, give us the wisdom. Give us the knowledge. Give us discernment. Listen, bottom line is you know right from wrong. You know what's good for you. You know what's not good for you. Right?
Yeah.
So, be careful, okay? Is co-initiating sex a big deal in a relationship?
Yes.
Again, all the answers are coming from this side, okay? Is it important that it's not always the same person every time?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Frank, I'm not listening to you. It's important. It's important that it goes both ways. Why do you want to feel like it's always me, it's always me, it's always me? Right? Okay, so enough said. And that can create a problem in the relationship as well. Right? Okay. We are not gonna have enough time to go through the last clip. I know, all ladies are like, what do you mean? You led right up to it. But that's a 7-minute video. But let me just say this. I don't know why did it stop there?
I didn't see it there.
What?
I didn't see it there when I was going through it.
Yeah, there's one more. Anyway, if you look at the scripture of Song of Solomon, it says, hold on. How delightful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much more pleasing is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your perfume than any spice. And Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, go all out in your love for your wives, exactly as Christ did for the church, a love marked by giving, not getting. Christ's love makes the church whole. His words evoke her beauty. Everything he does and says is designed to bring the best out of her, dressing her in dazzling white silk, radiant with holiness. And that is how husbands ought to love their wives. They're really doing themselves a favor since they're already one in marriage. So, for those of you that are going camping this week, when you